Guru Nation, thank you so much for watching and listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. I've been meaning to make this topic for a long time, and it's kind of like taking my whole thesis on being a generalist and how we all start out as specialists, but then I guess as we do more things or we start expanding our expertise, we become more generalists, even though we are maybe multi-specialists. Uh, when all said and done, at the end of our career, we are essentially generalists. And the analogy that I like, it just kind of, I guess it appeared in my head when I was talking with Chris about this topic. We had topics about how AI might replace some jobs and uh, how some people might be immune based on what they do. The entire episode, it's like 45 minutes. It's on the podcast, it's on the YouTube channel. I think I mentioned it there first. When you are starting out, the goal is to get to become like a concentrated orange juice. Like how when you buy those really concentrated juices and then you dilute them with water and you can make gallons of a beverage, depending however much you dilute them. I think that's really the same thing when it applies to coordinators especially, but also CRAs to some extent. So those are the two. If there is any role in this industry that is a generalist, it's those two roles that I can think of, coordinator and CRA. And you can argue maybe project manager. I just don't think the project manager know enough, like the project manager from the CROs or sponsors. I don't think they know enough about the day-to-day at the site level for this to be true. So I really think it boils down to coordinators and CRAs being having the potential to become concentrate. And what does that mean? Like, not everyone wants to be a site owner. Not everyone should be a site owner. But that is ultimately, like, I think the ultimate form of a generalist is to be a site owner. But then you have someone like a Robert Goldman, who now is director of clinical operations for multiple biotech companies. I mean, he's done it for decades now. He's a friend of the pod, a friend of the show, a customer of Patient Ace, SOS supporter, a Guru After Dark co-host. He has never been a coordinator, but he's been a CRA, and he developed his skills in a concentrated packaging. And once you develop those skills, it might take 2 years for some, it might take 5 years, but once you have the raw ingredients of that concentrate, you're able to dilute it and expand your earning capabilities, leverage your skill set. If you build a business, figure out a way to scale it, all from developing, and it all starts at the foundation of developing those core concentrated skills. And so it doesn't have to be site owner. It could be a consultant. It could be one of these new roles that I think are going to become increasingly prevalent, fractional executive. So there's startups that have fractional CFOs, chief financial officers. There's startups that have fractional chief operating officers. You can be you can do many things and leverage your earning potential. Because if you end up just being an employee your entire career, no matter what you do, your earning potential is capped based on your hours. But if you can take your concentrated skill sets and just add water, as simple as adding water, meaning adding the necessary solvent, the necessary thing to dilute it, to give the customer what they want, to give the other stakeholder what they want, and to be able to scale it. That's the thing. You can take one concentrate bar from the store and make multiple pitchers of orange juice. And you can't do that by just being an employee. So I think for those of you more entrepreneurial minded, it's important to understand, yes, I'm a site owner. Yes, I think that is a really good outcome for a lot of you. But also, I mean, Look at Patient Ace. Patient Ace started with my business partner, Ronick. Ronick was not a coordinator. He has experience as a coordinator, but he developed concentrated skills in other industries, specifically how to program advertisements to get attract customers, in our case, their patients. And then he was a patient himself, and he's now since been a coordinator. So he's developed the necessary foundation to be able to build a business that doesn't just pay him based on his hours. And a lot of you listening and watching, and I'm glad I get to be a small voice to maybe make you think differently, is yeah, I mean, it's cool to be an employee. It's in many ways, there's nothing wrong with being an employee the rest of your career, but there are other options too. And there's nothing wrong with developing your skill set, developing your formulation, your concentrated formulation, so that when you are ready, and when the opportunity presents itself, because really you are never ready. Like mentally, everybody when they first start something that is their own venture, so whether it's going out on their own to be a consultant, or whether it's going out on their own to start a site, or whether it's like the person who today messaged me about wanting to start a CRO, you're never ready, and it's never a guarantee. Like to go from a guaranteed paycheck that you receive every 2 weeks as an employee to maybe I'll get paid, maybe I won't type of thing is a very scary proposition. It's a very risky proposition. It's something that I'm fortunate I did not have to think about much because I became a site owner really early in my career and almost on accident. It really was on accident. I didn't have time to go through that mental gymnastics in my head of, well, what if this happens and what if that happens? I just did it. And if I think if it would have not worked out, I would have gone back to being a CRA, a coordinator, and maybe I would have been able to try my luck again at some future point. I don't know how my life would have turned out, but there's nothing wrong with working for someone else and developing your skill set. Again, coordinator and CRA, but I mean, prove me otherwise in something else. But if and it all depends on what you want to do on the as the outcome. If you want to be a site owner, obviously it's important to know what it's like at a site. Ideally as a coordinator, but we've had many successful CRA clients through our DSCS site services, consulting services. So it's very possible to do that too. But when it comes to honing skills, as far as working or being a consultant and no longer working for an hourly wage or an hourly salary, because that's linear earning, you're capped by the laws of nature and the laws of physics. When you start doing entrepreneurial type stuff, you're capped by how much you can scale it. How many service offerings can you provide from that foundational concentrate? And maybe some people are okay with more diluted drinks and some people want it a little more concentrated. It's okay. You control it. And then you can always go back and get more of that concentrate, right? Because once you have it, you can keep creating it, keep producing it, as long as you stay current, as long as you understand where the industry is headed. So figuring out tools. We've never been in a better time to try your own entrepreneurial endeavors. Look at all the CROs and what they are doing right now. There's layoffs. Before the layoffs in the US due to AI and tech improvements, there were layoffs due to global outsourcing. You have to figure out how to stay ahead of the trends. And AI is a great leveling of the playing field for everyone. You can do so much more. If there was one thing to describe AI right now in our industry, it's leverage. You can take this tool or these sets of tools, figure out how to use them, and figure out how to dilute your already established concentrate, your raw ingredients. And really, you are the raw ingredients, and it's in your head. The raw ingredients are in your head, so you just need the tools to be able to service people. So you got to figure out what you want to do, what you're good at. Is it patient recruitment? Maybe you can create a patient ace. Is it regulatory affairs? Is it medical writing? Maybe you can figure out a scalable solution for your clients. Remember, another thing technology is people only like to talk about, well, it's a great job displacement and uh, all the negative stuff that comes with it. Well, some of the positive things that come with technology is it's a deflationary force, meaning the longer and more often and more quantity of people that start using it, the better solutions that come to the marketplace. So it's no longer a zero-sum game, and things get cheaper for everyone else because it's a competition. It's supply and demand. So ultimately, when these tools and these technologies come out, initially it sounds bad because they are displacing people. Unfortunately, the majority of our industry does not watch or listen to this channel or anything similar to mine and is not being proactive and is not even thinking about these things. How do I take my concentrated skills and dilute them and leverage them and become a generalist? Like they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking about the next paycheck, maybe the next job they can get into, the next ring on the or the rung on the ladder that they can climb to get more pay, hourly pay. Or even if it's salary, you're still working like essentially an hourly pay. Your earning is limited. But if you start looking and thinking, well, how can I use these tools? You can start working for yourself, and that's where all the leverage and all the magic happens. So when it comes to site owners, this is the topic I can talk about because it's something I do, but also when it comes to things like other businesses like Save Our Sites, like Latinos in Clinical Research, like Patient ACE that I already mentioned, like our DSCS site services, like our academies through the University of Clinical Research. None of those things pay me an hourly wage, nor do they pay any of my other co-founders an hourly wage. But our earning potential is only limited by how much we can scale and how much business we can bring in. And when it comes to site ownership, your earning potential is only limited by how many studies you can bring on, how many patients you can randomize, and you can how quickly and effectively you can grow and maintain that quality at your site. And this is where you got to start having systems in place. How long you can maintain and grow and keep quality and continuous improvement of quality because sponsors are expecting better and better results for themselves. Why? Because of these technologies. What was once a dream of sponsors to have data entered within 5 days is now mandatory. And pretty soon it's going to be ubiquitous, meaning there's going to be technologies that do it without the coordinators really having to do too much. Same thing with uh, patients showing up at your site. One of the things Patient ACE does really well is let patients schedule themselves to come in either for pre-screening visits or screening visits. So that used to be a very active activity. Sites used to have to spend time and money and effort to get patients to show up. Now tools are just doing it. And the more patient ACE competitors that come out, the cheaper these things are going to be. So sites are expecting more for less. Sponsors are expecting more for less. Patients, they don't have to pay for anything, but they deserve more options. And it all boils down to individuals like you watching, like me, like you listening, like some of my business partners that figure out a way to leverage their skill set into multiple business opportunities. Site ownership is a great way to do it, but it's also extremely risky if you do not understand the fundamentals of what it means to be a coordinator. Because at the end of the day, The coordinators, as you know, are doing 90% of the work at the sites. So initially, if you want to take more risk off the table, instead of hiring a coordinator, which costs money, you're going to have to do it. And even if you do hire a coordinator, you're going to have a quality assurance system, quality control system in place. Meaning somebody has to check to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and they actually know what they're doing and they're actually being compliant with it. Because human beings become lazy and like to cut corners and they like to do, and not because they're bad, they like to do the least amount of energy. They like to exert the least amount of energy into any outcome as long as they can get away with it. And so you are the managerial layer. You are the supervisor. You are the buck stops with you. When my employees make mistakes or try to cut corners, the sponsors go to the PIs, but then the PIs come to me. Hey, what's going on? Well, we got to do a CAPA plan. We got to implement a quality assurance program. We got to tighten up some of our workflows. But you're not going to know how to do any of this stuff unless you've been at the site and you know what the problems are beforehand because they are always the same things. There's always issues following the protocol. There's always issues getting things in place when it comes to keeping the sponsors happy and keeping the patients happy at the end of the day. So I just thought I would make a quick video episode on developing your skill set, but then thinking about, are you ready to make the next step and try to figure out ways to leverage your expertise, really have an unlimited earning potential, which is fine, but then you got to go figure out what the needs are and where your core competencies are first, and what's your MVP, your minimal viable product, meaning how are you going to make your first dollar from this new venture? And how are you going to be profitable? That's it. Once you do that, then you figure, okay, how do I make the next one? And how, for a site owner, it's the first study. How do I get the first study and how do I make money on that first study? And what about the startup fees and all this stuff? And then how do I keep growing? And how do I keep my pipeline busy? And how do I keep the patients coming in? If you're a consultant or somebody that's going out on their own, not necessarily as a site owner, but as a freelancer, or as a maybe a startup owner for something like Patient Ace or something like Select IQ or something like one of my sponsors, Creo or Inato. Those were all founded by entrepreneurs. And that was the skill set that they brought was their concentrated efforts. Inato was built by somebody who was at a sponsor level and thought there was better ways for sponsors to select sites. And Creo was founded by a site owner who was also a coordinator who thought there's got to be a better way to figure out how to do source documents and how to do the study visit workflows when the patients come in. Those are now hugely successful businesses and proud sponsors of my podcast, by the way, because of this, because the entrepreneur, the founder figured out their skill set, figured out that concentrated mix, and figured out how to distribute that and leverage it and how to not cap their income on an hourly wage. So think about that for yourself. Hopefully, this analogy helps. This was more of a motivational style thing, but I think the analogy is going to be useful as a mental model going forward to think about your career and your career development. Let me know what you think about this. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Talk to you later. Bye bye.